Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. What an interesting and intriguing 48 hours it has been in American politics. In fact, the very reason I'm making today's episode is because I believe we are now in a situation whereby Bernie Sanders supporters may well help swing this election in favour of Donald Trump. I think there are 5 good reasons to think this could happen. First of all, there is the fact that Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders share one very important thing in common. They are both outliers, they are outsiders, they are men who come from outside of the political establishment. Now, I'm not saying that they are totally outside of the establishment. Both men actually are probably a lot more connected to the establishment than what they would like to admit or their supporters would like to acknowledge. But the simple fact is that by and large, they do come from outside the system and they are speaking into the system from that perspective. And they've certainly been very successful at spinning that particular narrative out in the public arena. So what that means is if you're a disenfranchised Bernie Sanders supporter and you are now looking for a vote to perhaps get revenge on Hillary, or you're looking for a vote to actually show that you are not part of the establishment, then Donald Trump really is the only candidate who is going to present that option to you. Number 2, there was the fact that Hillary Clinton did not pick Bernie Sanders to be her vice presidential running mate. I was really surprised by that. Clearly it indicates that they take Trump to be a lot more of a serious threat than some people in the media do. But it was also a huge gamble at the same time, because the simple fact is that Bernie Sanders garnered a lot of support, and I sort of thought that the obvious and very strong thing for the Democrats to do would be to actually mount a campaign where Bernie Sanders was the VP. She didn't do that, and I think a lot of his supporters would have questioned that, and it would have raised serious doubts for them about how loyal she was to not just Sanders but to his cause in general. Once again, does this reinforce what he's been saying about her being a problematic candidate? Thirdly, Bernie Sanders endorsed Hillary Clinton. Now, I was really surprised when he did this. Now, I'm not surprised that he ceded and said, look, I threw in the towel and said, I can't win, so I'm throwing in the towel gracefully. But he actually went on to endorse her and suggest that she was the best and most suitable person to be the next president of the United States. Now that's problematic because he has spent many, many months now claiming that she is not fit for office. He's pointed out the dishonesty, the problems with foreign policy, the problems with her personal charity. There's a whole host of things. The fact that she's a Wall Street crony, she's very much part of the establishment and the status quo. And he's been right on all of that stuff. But the point is, he has been pointing that out and consistently proclaiming the fact that she is totally unfit to be the next president. Yet, just last week, he endorsed her and said the exact opposite, that she was the most suitable person for the job. And I think for a lot of his supporters, that potentially started to raise some questions. Was he as much outside of the establishment as they had thought? What was going on here? And I suspect that raised some questions, particularly with what's happened subsequently, which brings me to point number 4, the WikiLeaks email scandal. Now, this has completely changed the whole game, I think. It's thrown a cat amongst the pigeons for Democratic politics for this election. Because what you've got here is proof that the leadership of the Democratic Party actively worked to rig the system against Bernie Sanders. They have actively worked to rig the system against him and to favour Hillary Clinton. Now that's a huge problem for them for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it feeds the narrative that Hillary is very much part of the establishment and that Bernie Sanders was disdained and that he was treated unjustly because of the fact that he wasn't part of the establishment. Secondly, Donald Trump actually has been saying for a long time now that the Democratic election process was rigged to favour Hillary. Now, regardless of whether he was just guessing or passing around nothing more than rumours and sort of, his own self-interested scaremongering, he's actually turned out to be correct in that accusation. So once again, this starts to create big problems. You've now got what were divisions, 2, distinct groups, Hillary and Bernie Sanders supporters within the Democratic Party, who are now actually standing over a rather large and gaping open wound that has been caused by the release of all of these emails. And once again, this is not something you can write off as some right-wing hack attack job. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks are very much, or they have considered him to be part of their whole agenda, if you like, if you're someone on the left. So here's someone from within their own, who's on their own political spectrum, who's in their spectrum, who's on their own radar, who's actually released all this information. And lastly, there is the issue of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the ringleader, who was responsible for driving this rigged system, who was responsible for creating this injustice against Bernie Sanders. And she, in fact, this scandal was so bad she resigned. She had to resign because it was the only honourable thing left to do after being involved in such an act of injustice. But she was immediately hired by Hillary Clinton to work on her campaign. Basically, that sends a very clear message to Bernie Sanders supporters: you're not welcome in Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party, or they just don't care about you. The whole system is rigged against you. Like I said, you might well see now a whole lot of Bernie Sanders voters who are saying, what? The system's rigged? Well, who do we vote for then? And the only person who really has any sort of, if you want to call it this, credibility as being an anti-establishment figure that they could vote for is Donald Trump. But the thing is, they don't even need to vote for Donald Trump. They might just simply say there's no point in voting because the whole thing is rigged. It's corrupt. So there's no point in voting at all. And if they don't vote en masse, that also favours Donald Trump. Not only that, but it's not just the Bernie Sanders supporters she needs to worry about. There is also the regular Democrats and those sort of, I guess, centrist voters who might not have supported Sanders and who wouldn't have previously supported Trump. But now that it's been revealed that the Democratic Party was running this corrupt and unjust and very rigged playing field in order to favour Hillary Clinton, and that Hillary has employed the ringleader of this corruption into her own campaign, a lot of those voters are going to say, hey, this isn't just. This is corrupt. I don't want to vote for a corrupt system. I don't want to vote for a corrupt politician. Once again, they don't need to vote for Trump. They just need to not turn out to vote at all. And all of a sudden, the cat has really been thrown amongst the pigeons. It's going to be extremely interesting to see what happens, because I guarantee you there's no way that anybody in the Democratic Party wanted to head into their Democratic convention in this fashion. They have the whole thing is completely imploded. The Democratic political machine has imploded. It kind of makes that Mrs. Trump plagiarism scandal look rather appealing for them right now. I bet you they wish that that was something that was the worst of their troubles, instead of this complete division, this massive gaping wound that now exists within their party. And it has only been made worse by the fact that Hillary has chosen to take the ringleader into her own camp and employ her. Very, very intriguing to see how this is all going to play out in the coming weeks and months. But one thing's for certain, it's not going to be something that they can just sort of try and sweep under the rug and claim as some sort of right-wing conspiracy or some sort of media beat-up. This really isn't anything of the sort, and it is extremely serious. The very fact that someone had to resign over this shows you how serious the situation actually is. And that's what makes the fact that she's been employed by Clinton all the more problematic. Despite the fact that it was so serious that she had to resign, Clinton was still willing to take her on board and bring her close and into her own camp to work for her. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.